In 1961 at the Geneva Motor Show, something happened that the automotive world has never fully recovered from. Enzo Ferrari, the man who built the most desired cars on Earth, the man whose entire professional identity rested on the belief that no other manufacturer on the planet could produce something that genuinely challenged what he created, walked up to a brand new Jaguar, stood in front of it, and said one sentence. He called it the most beautiful car ever made. Not one of the most beautiful. Not among the finest. The most beautiful car ever made. No qualifications. No diplomatic framing. No acknowledgement that it was a close thing. Coming from Enzo Ferrari, in a room full of journalists, that statement was seismic. The automotive press picked it up immediately and has never put it down. 60 years later, that sentence is still the first thing anyone says about the Jaguar E-Type. The car was the E-Type Series 1. First year of production, Brown's Lane factory, Coventry, England. And somewhere in America, one example of that car disappeared from the record almost immediately after it was sold. It went somewhere, stopped being driven, and simply ceased to exist in any documentation. Gone. We found it in an American farm barn in a condition that takes a moment to describe properly. Not just a barn where someone had parked a car and forgotten about it. A barn that the surrounding forest had decided, over the course of several decades, to completely reclaim. Trees had grown up through the roof structure, splitting the timber from the inside, letting weather enter freely for years. Ivy had covered every single exterior surface of the car so thoroughly that the shape beneath was only readable if you understood what shape you were looking for. The barn floor was indistinguishable from the forest floor outside. The same leaf litter, the same root systems working through the concrete, the same organic progression of wood to soil. Moss had covered the glass. Decades of rain had washed silt into every opening. And in the middle of all of it, the E-Type was still standing on its tires, consumed by the natural world in a way that almost never happens to a car, but standing. When we first walked in with flashlights, we genuinely did not immediately understand what we were looking at. The shape under the vegetation read as something long and low. Then one beam caught the front end at the right angle. The long, gently tapering nose of the E-Type, the specific aerodynamic profile that Jaguar's aerodynamicist Malcolm Sayer developed using mathematical principles borrowed from aircraft design rather than from traditional coach building, is unmistakable at any angle, even under decades of moss and creeping plant growth. We both stopped moving at the same moment. Neither of us said anything for what felt like a very long time. The first decision was discipline. Document everything before touching anything. Every angle, every surface, every inch of vegetation, every point where roots had made contact with bodywork. We spent time doing that before a single piece of plant material was moved. That discipline matters because this was not simply a damaged car. This was a sealed record of 1961. Understanding what you have before you start altering it is the difference between a restoration and a destruction, and that distinction was not going to be casual. To understand why the E-Type matters, you need to understand what the sports car market looked like in 1961 and what Jaguar did to it. Before the E-Type, sports cars occupied two separate worlds. The first world was the expensive Italian exotic, Ferrari, Maserati, machines of genuine performance and genuine beauty that required wealthy owners, specialist mechanics, and a tolerance for unreliability that bordered on the masochistic. The second world was the affordable British sports car, MG, Triumph, Austin Healey, charming, fun, characterful, but not genuinely fast by any serious standard, and not particularly advanced mechanically. There was nothing in between those two worlds, nothing that offered real performance, real beauty, real engineering advancement, and a price that a successful professional could actually consider. The E-Type created that middle ground, single-handedly, immediately, with a specification that left no room for argument. Independent suspension on all four wheels. That sounds ordinary now. In 1961, for a production sports car at any price point, it was extraordinary. Most sports cars of the period, including many expensive Italian ones, still used a live rear axle, a beam connecting both rear wheels that moved together, that transferred braking and power forces to the chassis in ways that limited both comfort and handling precision. The E-Type's independent rear suspension, with its inboard disc brakes mounted next to the differential to reduce unsprung weight, was a formula racing solution transplanted into a road car. Disc brakes on all four corners, Jaguar had used discs to win at Le Mans, and they were putting that technology into a road car that cost a fraction of a Ferrari. The XK engine, an inline six-cylinder with twin overhead camshafts and hemispherical combustion chambers, was not new to Jaguar, but in the E-Type's light body it produced a power-to-weight ratio that contemporary testers found difficult to reconcile with the price. 0 to 60 miles per hour in under 7 seconds. Top speed of 150 miles per hour. Ferrari's 250 GT, which cost nearly 3 times as much, was not meaningfully faster by any honest measurement. Road and Track called the E-Type the greatest car value in the history of the automobile. Car and drivers said there was simply nothing to compare it to. Extraction from the barn took most of a day. Root systems had grown into the wheel arches and had to be cut carefully away section by section to avoid marking the aluminum bodywork. The Ivy was physically bonded to the sheet metal in hundreds of separate contact points and came away only with sustained, patient work. We moved slowly. We understood what we were handling. Every exterior body panel on the E-Type is aluminum. Hand-formed aluminum, shaped by craftsmen at Brown's Lane, who spent weeks forming each individual car by hand over wooden bucks. These panels cannot be replaced. There are no new old stock reproductions available. There are no affordable alternatives. What was on this car when we pulled it from the barn was exactly and only what was going to be on it when the restoration was complete. That reality concentrates the mind in a way that nothing else does. Under workshop lighting for the first time, the scope of the work was visible. Moss had penetrated every seal and every gap throughout the car. The leather interior was beyond salvage in most areas. Cracked, split, collapsed in on itself after decades of humidity cycles. The XK engine was completely seized. The carburetors were packed with debris. Every rubber component on the car, hoses, gaskets, seals, bushings, tires, the entire rubber inventory, had either hardened to the point of cracking or decomposed entirely. The wiring harness was corroded throughout. The chrome wire wheels had spoke corrosion at several corners. The assessment was complete, the scope was understood, and the work began. The rebuild was total and documented at every stage. The XK engine came out as a complete unit. It went to an engine specialist who disassembled it completely, measured every component against factory specification, machined what required machining, sourced the correct replacement components, and rebuilt it with new seals, bearings, and gaskets throughout. The 3 SU carburetors, one of the most elegantly simple fuel delivery solutions ever produced, reliable and tunable in a way that more complex systems are not, were disassembled, ultrasonically cleaned, and rebuilt to correct specification with correctly sourced components. The independent rear suspension was completely disassembled. Every component cleaned and inspected, every bearing replaced, every bushing replaced, every seal replaced, and the whole assembly rebuilt and set to factory geometry. Every rubber component on the entire car was replaced. The wiring harness was replaced with a correct period specification reproduction. The chrome wire wheels were fully rebuilt on new rims with new spokes and balanced. British racing green for a 1961 E-Type is not a color that can be matched by eye or estimated from a paint chip. The specific pigment formulation of the original 1961 specification, the surface character of the paint, the way it reads in different lighting conditions, all of this was established through spectrophotometric analysis and cross-referenced with Jaguar archival documentation for the correct production year. Applied over correctly prepared epoxy primer, the result is a color that carries the entire visual identity of British motorsport. Every Le Mans victory Jaguar ever won. Every race at Silverstone and Brands Hatch. The green that Britain was assigned for international motor racing at the beginning of the 20th century, loaded with a century of competition history, correct to the specific year of this specific car. The first start after the rebuild was the moment that all the work either justified itself or did not. The XK engine fired on the first attempt, settled into a smooth, even warm-up idle. All three SU carburetors breathing in synchronization, the twin overhead cam valve train producing that specific mechanical